Hola, buenas noches a todos. Bienvenidos a una nueva sesión de webinar, que en este caso va a ser un poquito diferente a lo que habitualmente estamos haciendo, porque es un vídeo grabado en su momento hace unos días por el invitado, que es Alan Robinson, que todos conocéis, creo. Estuvo presente en nuestro congreso anterior con unas importantes ponencias sobre la práctica independiente, de la que él es defensor y representante. Y estuvo también en Italia, en el Congreso de Florencia, de asistente, no de ponente, pero es un veterinario que tiene una empresa en Birmingham que se llama Vet Dynamics. Es un consultor para cuestiones de consultoría de negocios y de ayuda a las empresas veterinarias independientes de Inglaterra, básicamente, y colabora habitualmente con AGESVET y con otras asociaciones que nos dedicamos a temas de gestión. Alan, ¿qué os voy a decir? Para nosotros ha sido una importante referencia para indicar cómo han sobrevivido las clínicas independientes en Inglaterra. Él ha estado dando estos días en su país unos cuantos webinars de cómo sobrellevar la situación y, de hecho, la charla de hoy trata un poco de eso, de cómo estar en lo más alto, cómo aguantar este tirón. Sin más, darle las gracias a Alan Robinson, personalmente, en nombre de AGESVET, y ahora mi amigo Augusto las dará en nombre del grupo de gestión de AVEPA. Bienvenidos. La charla es en inglés, pero podéis descargaros en la invitación de hoy, podéis en la transcripción de la charla para que sea para aquellos, como dije el otro día, que habitualmente machacamos el idioma, sobre todo el inglés o el italiano, que podemos seguirlo de una manera más adecuada y de una forma más cómoda. Entonces, sin más, bienvenidos, gracias por estar aquí, como decía la canción, y os paso con Augusto.
Pues buenas tardes, socios de AGESVET y socios del GGA de AVEPA y a todos los veterinarios. Pues bueno, pues habéis visto lo que es gestión. Llevamos 2 meses trabajando en varios webinars desde AGESVET y el GGA de AVEPA sobre temas de gestión. La última vez, ¿os acordáis del doctor Paolo Pepucci desde Italia? Nos contó y nos habló del método Lean para ser más competitivo. Y hoy Alan, desde Inglaterra, pues nos va a hablar de estar en el nivel más alto, del performance más alto, o sea, cómo llevar a nuestros equipos y cómo llevar en la practice, la clínica, a lo más alto para que sea mucho más rentable. Así que, pues nada, pues nos vamos con el vídeo de Alan y a disfrutar.
Welcome to everybody who are already on the line. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes to give people time to get onto the webinar. The webinar you've joined, in case you're in the wrong room, is Sustaining Peak Performance. If you'd like to, you can say hello. Matt said hello. Hi, Matt. Lots of people joining now, so just give it a couple of more seconds to just let people get in, get settled. Okay, I'm sure people will continue to join us over the next couple of minutes. It's, you know, there's loads of people joining. Welcome to everybody. This is our second webinar today, and we're reaching out and trying to offer as much help as we can to practices. With me and presenting today will be Alan. And my name is Debbie Robinson. I'm a vet performance coach. A practice performance coach. I'll get it right in a minute, sorry about that. So today we're covering sustaining peak performance, and you would have seen in Alan's invite to you that you know, in this you know, the current situation, we wanted to actually provide some support and guidance as to what to be doing over the coming weeks and months. So, as Alan said, whatever your beliefs about the current state of the world, you know, there are three steps that you could be taking that will serve you really well. And that will be, you know, don't deny it. This is really happening. Don't panic. And most importantly, take action. So please, there are a lot of people on the call. But please do ask questions. There's no, I'm a great believer in there's no such thing as a stupid question. So don't be shy. Ask questions as we go through. We'll try and answer them as we go through, because I know Alan wants this to be quite an interactive session, not just like some sort of lecture. So it's going to be more question and answers. So ask those questions. I'll feed them as they come through if we can. If not, if there's too many, we'll try and cover as many as we can at the end. So without further ado, I shall pass over to Alan.
Hi Deb, thanks very much, and welcome everybody. A lot of names there I recognise, so much of this is you're coming back for more from me. Interesting in that they did a webinar this morning, and that was to the people that were meant to be coming to our boot camp yesterday and today, which is our marketing event and putting stuff forward. And I got there, and of course we had to cancel it, so we did a webinar just to introduce some of the tools and things. But as I was going through the notes and looking at the presentations we did last year, I was just looking at it and going, doesn't apply, doesn't apply, doesn't apply. It was just this massive ground shift in what the current focus is. So it's really interesting to be in this situation, and of course, is it a threat, is it an opportunity? The usual management questions we'll throw at you. So what I was going to do today is really present a few ideas of my own, which, as you could imagine, I've always got a few. How we pitch this, how we frame this for the best. This is serious stuff, guys. This is probably more serious than anything we've seen. A lot of the stuff, I actually went back and looked at the 2008, 2009 stuff we were producing and the language I was using then and talking to practices and talking to people. And it's very similar, except the consequence, the outcomes are going to be very, very different. That was a financial crisis. This is a health crisis. And so this is working much closer and much deeper to our identity, our psyches, and other such things. So it's a different set of tools we're going to need to manage this. And I assume I'm talking to practice leaders, practice owners, practice managers, or even just in your own family. You are now having to step up and lead and show some sort of example for people to cope, because as much as the virus is contagious, the emotion behind it is actually more contagious, and you can see that from the news feeds and everything else now. So I'm going to walk you through a few ideas. Please jump into the chat room. We can't have everyone speaking, it's just been impossible. We've got a lot of people on the call. But if you can just chuck in either comments, that's great. But if you've got clear questions that come out of it, pitch those. Debbie will grab those and feed them back to me, and I'll try and cover those as we go. But what I'm going to do towards the end is open this up to, so what are you guys doing in practice? Because I think there's a lot of really good stuff happening in practice in terms of looking after our teams, looking after ourselves, looking after the clients, coping under the threat of pretty severe financial pressures, stress and everything else. And if we can share some of that, I think we'll have done a good job. My thinking is, if this works today, and we're going to run an hour and see how we go, we'll do it again next week, and we'll keep running these until, as long as they're creating value and it's working for people. But I've been coaching with my clients, and they tell me stuff. I said, wow, that's a really good idea. I need to share that. So this is the forum for that. So I'm just going to share my screen. There will be a presentation. I'm going to sort of give you some ideas, but like I said, please make this interactive as we go. So just let me share this. Just tell me, Debbie, is that okay? Up and visible?
Yes, it's fine.
Good. Okay, let's go. So, as you know, VetDive is about community. We've been talking about this. Our conference this year was very much about community. How do we bring people together? And then in a stable state, community is good. We sort of have lackluster response to that sort of message. But the world has changed dramatically, and I think our message is more important than it has ever been at the moment if we don't hold this there. Because there's going to be a polarity developed here. There's going to be fear, anxiety, stress, which is going to force people down one direction. And there's also going to be massive innovation, altruism, care and compassion come out of this as well. And you really don't want to sit between those two camps. You've really got to join one or the other, and I know which one we're going to talk about. So this is really, how do we drive that forward? And I want to sort of tell you some things we're doing, some of the things I'm hearing other people doing, some things you could do to sort of help maintain it. But a lot of this, as you can imagine, is mental modelling of where we are and making sense of this. Because to be honest, none of this makes sense in its broadest terms. So let's have a play with this. Just a little bit of caveat here. I am not your mother. So this is not telling you what to do, what you should or shouldn't do. I don't have to tell you to wash your hands and blow your nose. But equally, this isn't legal, medical, pastoral or financial advice. We can get into that in a different way. This is about ideas for you to go. And what I want you to do is stretch your thinking, because a considered decision is by far better than just a decision, okay, or no decision at all. So the saying is, okay, if you have to make a decision, you might not make the right decision, but make a decision and make it right. And we want to give some tools to work down that path. Now, personally, I think this crisis, and this is really selfish of me, is possibly one of the best things that's ever happened to the veterinary profession. I said exactly the same thing when the 2008-2009 crisis arrived, because what it's made everyone do, and just look at the people turning up on this webinar, everyone's picked themselves up and starting to pay attention. They're asking for, and not just from us, but just generally, and asking, how the hell did we get into this situation? Where did this come from? Why didn't we predict it? And to be honest, Debs and I were just having a discussion. This was predicted years ago, and Bill Gates predicted it ages ago. Do you remember the story War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells? Has anyone read that? In the original movie, the aliens came down from Mars, invaded the Earth. They were the aggressor to the Earth, obviously were destroying the planet. And when at the last gasp, when all was lost, the aliens started dropping and dying. Why? Because they got contracted a flu or a measles virus or something of that nature. And it was the smallest living entity on the planet that actually won it back for us on that. Really good story. Interestingly, in the later update of that movie with Jeff Goldblum in it, humans had the arrogance to actually convert the story, and Jeff Goldblum flew up to the mothership and uploaded a computer virus into the system which destroyed the ship, etc. So again, humans were the hero in this. What I'm suspecting is this contagion, this situation going on, is going to tell us quite bluntly, humans, you are not the heroes in this. You are as much a victim as anything else on this planet. And I think there's a little bit of what's it actually feel like to be a victim. Because, to be honest, we've been stuffing up this planet big time, and I'm going to come back to it as well. I think this is just a massive, massive planet detox. It's just kicking back. At the moment, we are the aggressor. We are the ones that are working on this planet, and I'm going to drill this down into veterinary practice as well. But as the aggressor, the planet's just said, I don't care, you might be top of the tree, but guys, you're really mucking up here. This is the hit back. So take that on a philosophical note as you wish. But here's some interesting things. So over the past 10 years, since that meltdown, I've been sort of talking to you about economics and demographics and corporatization, competition and technological change. And in a way, you've been expecting a real certainty, simplicity, a fairly linear response to this. Do this, do this. It's the 7 things I need to grow my practice. What's the 5 things I need to run a team? Blah, blah, blah. Facts and figures, evidence-based. That's us as vets. Very left-brain, logical, linear thinking individuals. And then, out of the blue, comes this thing that we have no comprehension for, really no tools to lead. And of course, in amongst that stuff, if you've been in my mastermind group or in the platinum groups, you know we talk a lot about leadership and connection and culture and empathy. But it kind of gets a bad rap. It doesn't really get the engagement. If I ran a lecture on leadership and connection, I'd get 3 people. If I run something on how to beat the corporates, I'd have 50 people. Because what we're in is a massively volatile and uncertain, complex world that lives within the context of something outside of our understanding. So we're going to make some meaning of that. So old coronavirus here is a salient lesson. And unless we learn that lesson pretty damn quick, we're in trouble. Now, the trouble I had with boot camp, it was all predicated on, here's your financial strategy, here's your strategic plan, here's your planning. Too late for all that. If you haven't done that already, you are possibly screwed. Okay? So if you haven't been working on those things clearly and putting stuff in place as a contingency, not because you've had to, but because of and this is the contingency, I think we're in trouble. So this is what I want to. Now, interestingly, if you go to Venice, you can actually see the bottom of the canals. In just a couple of months, with the shutdown we've had, and the shutdown, this canal, the sea has cleaned itself, and Venice is no longer just a flowing sewer. It's quite amazing. In China, they've got cities in China that have seen the blue sky for the first time in a decade. The smog's lifted and things are shifted. This is all reported in the news. You follow this up. In Central Europe, the amount of smog and pollution that's actually, particularly around there, northern Italy, has lifted. That's within 3 months. That's quite a stunning shift. And this is typical of when you personally go and have a detox, which is often called the flu or a cold, to be honest. You get all this stuff out of the system, your nose runs, your eyes run, your backside runs, everything comes out of the system. You clean out and you're really ill. And guess what? We're going to be really ill for quite a while. Our human response to this is going to be a survival mechanism as we go. Now, that gets all very depressive, but let's just frame this in terms of reality, etc. This is a distinct and huge opportunity to change the way we think and work and deal with the planet, how we think and work and deal with each other, and how we in the profession can radically change the way we work. Because I think our profession is broken, and I think our medicine is broken, and I think we have an obligation now to do something about that. And that's my take, and I'll push that forward as well. So here's from the boot camp. What are our challenges in business? Well, we can talk about all this stuff. Now, if you've been on that, you'll know I talk about all those things at the top of that list. The interesting things for me is the bottom 3, the innovation, learning new skills, what are the missed opportunities, and how do we deal with the isolation, uncertainty that is the underlying existential angst of our profession. Doesn't get much coverage because I never get that far down the list. But interestingly, that stuff is now absolutely top of the list. We are in physical isolation, we are going into social isolation. Those are two very different things. Living in a massive world of uncertainty. We cannot even see an opportunity in this at the moment, but unless we innovate, create, and learn rapidly, we're not going to see our way through this. We're not going to survive. Some are, for sure. The rest of the stuff is just being the contributors. And like I'm saying, if you haven't done the stuff on the top of the list, too late. Really, really too late. And we know from the studies out there that already the profession has this massive disconnection, persistent struggle, stress, anxiety, lack of coping with what we're trying to do, and burnout, disengagement. I mean, that's before we even had the coronavirus, for God's sake. That's where we started from. So, you know, we're in a meltdown. We've got to clean out the system. So the massive detox is going on. Purposefulness, bored, unmotivated. So just remember some of these terms. Let's kind of revisit some of this about meaning, the space between boredom and anxiety, dismotivation, etc. Yeah, autonomy and struggle. Okay, we're talking about everything from students before they graduate, in fact, before they get into college, I suggest, and then right through the whole profession. Of course, then we've got the whole corporate division there as well, which needs to cope with some of this stuff. Profitability, that's a symptom, purely a symptom. And of course, you know, we've all met, oh, profit's not so good, but we're okay. Such a boy, guys, over the next 3 months, profit's not even a word we're going to be using. We're going to probably struggle to maintain this. So we're going to cover some strategies to look at that after as we go. My model of you guys working together in your own business about clinical resolution, financial stability, client experience. Yeah, we're still clinically doing the job. We just got no patients, just got no clients, and the rest of the model is still broken. So I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. The symptoms are there. That's where we started from, and now we're going into this whole new world. Some of us are going to take this on and make something. What we're looking for is, like I said, massive, massive innovation, creativity, team support, team development is what's going to see us through this. The old school, what I call the sort of mechanics, the science of this is left behind in a way. So, again, I'm not going to go into this too much, but basically that resilience, that fixed mindset, that non-commerciality, if you haven't addressed that in some shape or form already, going into this crisis now is going to be really, really, really difficult. But that doesn't mean it's impossible, because the skills you need now are brand new skills. You can almost park those and say, oh, well, good thing I didn't do it for 10 years because now I don't need it. You will need it when you come out for sure. Okay, but going in, we're going to, let's look at some of those things. But the old issues of meaning and motivation and mindset and means around how we cope as vets are still underlying issues. They're still going to be important because they're going to block our pathway to these new skill sets and what we have to do and how we work. And, you know, I reckon all of you have got a real common good sense of vision and purpose at the moment. I reckon if I survive, that's my vision and purpose. It gives you a lot of meaning in getting up and going to work every day. But you're highly motivated on your commercial aspects now that it's taken away from you. And you know, if you factor coming to this webinar, giving up an hour and a half of your Friday afternoon to listen to me is a massive change in mindset, okay? But if we can give you the means now, the resources, the learning, the capabilities to actually maintain a state of capability, which I'll explain in a minute, that's really important. Remember, a lot of you, and we talked about your profiles and other things as well, highly kinesthetic, you're going to have a high emotional ride. You employ people who are also high emotional sensitivity. Okay? So this is going to be a major skill in what we call co-regulation. Self-regulation for yourself. How can I maintain my equanimity in this, my clear sense of reality, and then how can I impart that to my team? And already I'll bet some of you are really struggling with managing that whirlpool of emotion going on in the practice and at home, no doubt, in what we're doing. We hate conflict from the beginning, and we're going to have to make some really hard decisions that aren't going to be very popular and are not going to be very approved by people in the practice or your clients as well. Our low threshold of risk has been well and truly overcome. Okay, we're in unknown territory around safety and security. So our timelines are shrinking down to day by day, if not hour by hour at this stage. And I bet some of you are glued to the radio, glued to your tablets, looking at every scrap of news. I would highly advise you not to do that. because we need a clearer such reality. And that neuroticism is going to make us hyper-vigilant, hyper-focused, and prone to even more anxiety. So these are the challenges. I'm only raising these because if you're not aware of it, you'll fall into this trap, okay? And I'm going to give some ideas and tips and tricks in this webinar, plus maybe some more to follow on as well. The other thing is the social pressures are now loosening their grip. We have an opportunity to lose some of these myths that have been driving a lot of these symptoms in our profession for a long time. So the myths around altruism, I do this for the animals, it's still true, not for the money. But now you've got no money or will have no money, or you're going to rethink that one, I bet, okay? But we can also now say to everyone else who's in small business, well, you know what it's like when this happens. Social contract, okay, clients have a right to it. Well, you're having to tell clients, no, you have not a right to me because I don't want your disease, I don't want contact, etc. So you are already breaking these contracts day in, day out because of absolute necessity, okay? But we can use that for the future to, I'm not saying these are bad things, I'm saying they're overused things or over-abused things in our lives, etc. We're going to have to live with good enough. We're going to have to break down the perfection and expertise and actually do the best job we can in a crisis situation. It may not be right, but it's going to be the best job we can do. And equally, we've always complained how busy we are. It's just, we're busy, no time. Guess what, guys? You've got all the time in the world. I hope you enjoy it now, okay? So careful what you wish for. But here's the trick. How can we maintain activity, performance, production in this new world? How can we scale our resources to the clients coming through the door? How can we manage that? That's going to be one of the key tricks. And this busy trap is now going to be almost a boredom trap. It's almost going to be, I don't know what to do because I'm so used to being busy. The anxiety will come from that, okay? Still be stressful as a neuroticism. Please comment on this. I'm just free-forming here on this stuff. So again, here's my list of approach. This is what I've told the bootcamp guys, which I've told you guys all along. Here's the things to do. Every talk, I was going to BSABA, I had a few other talks booked. I was going to talk about charging properly and professional fees and finance and communication. Guess what? None of those topics matter now. These are the top three. And if we're not working on these and how we define and refine these, we're missing the trick. This is the new strategies for at least the next 12 months. And then it's returned to, and I would not say return to normal, return to a new state of normal sometime in the future. So that's a little preamble. This is Mr. Fuller, he's a philosopher, and basically our task is predominantly metaphysical, which is kind of where I put it. For all humanity, including veterinary surgeons, to educate themselves swiftly enough to generate spontaneous social behaviours that will avoid extinction. Now that's strong words, but for some of you, we are talking extinction, okay, in terms of your business and other such things, I would suspect, or certainly very hard times. But I would say out of that extinction comes a growth of a new business paradigm, and that's really what I want to be directing and hoping people will shift towards. So you should be deeply searching what's holding your fear at the moment, because that is probably embedded in some of this stuff as we go. Okay. Just another point on that. Ozymandias was Percy Bysshe Shelley. The statue to Ozymandias, the great and mighty king of the past, is now just a half-buried, rotting statue in the desert. Just remember, no one promised us ongoing prosperity. No one promised us that we would continue on being the lucky country of having everything in our favour, having a good economy. Even Brexit just fades into nothing now. I mean, what's all that about? We really don't care. Still to be resolved, okay? But just, why don't we just consider, if any of you born since 1946, as the beginning of the baby boomer generation, or you're in the Gen X generation, or the millennials, or the Gen Zs, any of you born in that time, just consider yourself up to now, you've been the luckiest people ever on this planet. You have had peace and prosperity, wealth and riches and growth and consumerism and drug, sex, rock and roll, for all that matters. Okay, we're living in the rose garden up to now, but that doesn't mean it must continue. So this element of privilege and entitlement, and I'm saying this is just a thought experiment. Just play with it. What's the new normal we've got to get used to? I know this is sounding a bit dire, but out of this will come the enrichment that we're looking for. Simon Sinek talks about what we're playing. This was previous to the coronavirus. We are now in the game of the infinite game. The infinite game has players that want to stay in the game. They don't want to win or lose. They just want to stay in the game. And they make up the rules as they go. And that's really where we're at. Whereas the finite game is a win-lose situation. It's a game of football. Either team A or team B wins. There's a set number of rules and we'll play for a certain amount of time. That's kind of how we've done business. That's kind of how we work. There's a competitor and there's me. I'm going to win. I want to be the best veterinary practitioner here. So there's an absolutism to it. Whereas the infinite game, which is the game we're truly playing at the moment, has no rules. Okay, well, it certainly has rules, but we make them as we go. But the main rule is stay in the game. Okay, so it's persistence and grit we're talking about here. Okay, and clever initiatives to make that happen. Because in the other game, there's winners and losers. Unfortunately, there's going to be more of one than the other. So the agenda, having said all that, is let's make some sense-making, decision-making rules here. How can we work on this and put some application to this? And then I want to sort of kick into some ground rules for day-to-day in practice, and we'll pick some of that as well. So to be honest, this might go over the hour, but it is being recorded and we'll capture the sort of the detailed stuff. We're going to write this stuff out and give you some resources to take away as well and see if that helps. But I want that contribution from you. You've got the on-ground knowledge that I haven't, so please share with that. Anything coming up in the chat, Deb?
No, not yet, Alan.
I've overwhelmed them completely. I
think you have.
Which, okay, we'll keep working on that one. Well, just please, someone chuck in does this make any sense? Am I making any sense in all this nonsense, or is I just adding to the nonsense quota? Just let me know, because this is new territory for me as well. So give us a clue. Okay, like I said, hard reality. Sum it up. Going to get worse before it gets better. Debs was just saying they've just announced this morning on the news. What was that, Debbie? That they're going to maintain.
Oh, it's just lunchtime that they're saying now that we will need to have isolation in place for 12 months minimum.
Okay. So can I just make one real strong point here? What we're hearing a lot about is this social isolation. We've got to be 2 meters apart, 6 feet apart. Social, please. Part of this rethinking is changing our language in a very strong way. The euphemisms, in fact. So number one, social isolation is really, really, really dangerous. Why? Because we're not social isolating, we're physically isolating. We don't want to be near each other physically, but we want to get closer socially. So separate those two terms. And yes, when you go out, be physically isolated, as in do your 6-foot thing and don't shake hands and do your leg wobble, whatever you have to do. But but talk separately about social togetherness. We don't want social isolation. That's what's going to really see us down in this sort of thing. So just take that as a take home, if nothing else. Okay. So physical isolation looks like it's going to be maintained for a lot longer. Schools closed down this weekend. All sorts of initiatives come out. We'll come back to that. Because underlying thing about mindset, fixed mindset, growth mindset, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to that. And that's really what we want to work on today, how we give you some response mechanism and understand how you have responded. Because most of us have knee-jerked into this. We've just gone back to our default mechanisms and responded in the way we respond to everything. We need to respond differently this time. So we need some new heuristics to work on. Okay. And the blunt end of this, despite everything to do, not everyone, not every business, not every institution, not every sacred cow, not every myth is going to survive this. And that's possibly a good thing for many of those sorts of things, okay? This is the clear out, this is the winter season, this is the breakdown in which new grass will grow. And that's what we're looking for here. We've been in a long, steel wintry season with corporatization and with facts and figures and money talking and all sorts of interesting things going in our world plus the wider world. And we talk about the things going on in Russia and Middle East and Syria, etc., ISIS, etc. It's all sort of typical of a breakdown coming. But the final arbiter to this is Mother Earth, and she said, right, that's it, shut the shop. And that's exactly what's happening. How do we make those decisions?
Alan, before
Please,
you proceed, I have got a couple of comments and questions for you. You asked, is it making sense? And people are saying, yes, it's making a lot of sense. This is great, Alan, carry on the right track. But I've got some others that are saying, we just need the answers, give us the answers. So I thought I'd throw that at you. And also I've got Kate, she says, I'm in isolation since a return from France with a cough. Very weird, but I have never got so much done or come up with so many ideas. Amazing when you get a chance to just slow it down and start to be strategic about things. So yeah, so the big thing is there, please can we have the answers? So
okay. Well, Kate first, brilliant. I love that. And isn't it interesting what stopping will do? Doing nothing can create. And what you've done is created space in your own mind, your own space to actually get somebody possibly important, if not urgent stuff done. And that's been, that's what we've been teaching you guys for years and years. Focus on the important and urgent, not just the urgent, etc. But we're not too busy. So suddenly, here's one prime opportunity. And again, Kate, I would hope you're in physical isolation, if that's what's the matter, but hope you're not in social isolation. I hope you have a good support network and somewhere to pass those ideas off to. Thank you for the people who are taking this on. Can I just suggest, I would hope the people who have said just give us the answers are saying that tongue-in-cheek. Maybe not, because that is such a left-brained approach to this. That is the thing that's going to fail us dismally in this whole process. The short thing is there are no answers. So if you're on this webinar for some answers, leave now, because this is a polarity management process. This is the wicked problems of the infinite game. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, there's just choices. And all we've got to do is make decisions around those choices that are neither right nor wrong. Okay? So, like I said, there are no answers. What we're going to help you think about is how do you manage polarities? How do you manage that the two ends of an equation that both have benefit or loss? And how do we put in the probability equation that actually helps us make that? Or do we just take the answers? Because the danger here is you'll take an answer from me, and it might be perfectly right answer for me, but it might be the totally wrong answer for you. None of this scales from individuals. You have to work this out yourself. So unless I give you the tools to work this out, don't do anything, is my view. But anyway, give me some more feedback on that. And that's not.
Alan, just another comment, which I'm also hearing from a lot of the practices I've been talking to extensively this week, is John says that he's had the best 3 weeks with regard to turnover ever.
Hey.
People still piling in spending. Biggest concern is staffing, what to do when they start self-isolating. I'm also seeing an awful lot of practices, or hearing a lot of practices are people are doing elective. It's just really, really busy. So yeah, you're not alone, John. I think a lot of practices are experiencing that as well.
John, well done. I love that, and I think we're getting a lot of it. And mixed messages, but I think we're getting the toilet paper effect here. Okay, I think there's a crash buy at the front. We're getting the get it sorted out, get it stuck. Well, I've got money, well, I've got time, well, I can get out, get stuff sorted. Dogs was one of those on the list, getting it done and pushing stuff forward, because people are seeing for the next 6 months they may not have that opportunity, may not have the money, may not have the access. So make hay while the sun shines and take this well. My suspicion, and I'm jumping into the back end of my webinar here, is that as your resources decrease, as in team members and capability, that client numbers will drop as well. So we might get a natural parallel curve on this stuff. You will have to manage it a little bit, just depends if the timing's right. But I think that's kind of what's happening. The government strategy is to flatten this curve, make it last a lot longer, but slow it down as much as possible. So if they do, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen in the next hour, basically. But if they do introduce harsher physical restriction parameters, suddenly you'll see some of that work slowing down. And then, of course, you might also have people isolating. But yeah, that's exactly what... So, I mean, who would have guessed? But there you go. It's the unknowns.
Yeah, there's a couple of posts saying that there have been drop-off in turnover, and someone's made a very valid comment about, this was John, regarding that increase, was that through drug sales and therefore low profit. So there's a mixed bag, but also some questions of making sure charging for professional time is really correctly for professional time is really important.
Yeah, I mean, it pains me to say, as you're pricing right, you're invoicing right, you're picking up all the opportunities, because I've been saying that for 25 frigging years, and I'm sick of saying it. But yes, that's what you should be doing. But as I said, what works for John is not necessarily going to work for other people. People will have their individualised problems they will have to make their own decisions on. This isn't referencing out to other people. All we can give you are some of the tools and some of the indications here. But thank you for those comments. That's brilliant. Keep those coming, because this is helping everybody. This helps everybody. It's really awesome. Exactly on that note, this is how we make that decisions. We have this sort of reality going on, and there is a reality to it. Now, what we hear and what we act on is some selection of the data from that reality. Now, that might be fed to us through news, through podcasts, through our tablets, through word of mouth, through pub, or through how we get this information. We are selecting because we have our own filters on as well in our view of the world and the way we like to have data. Some that's soft data, some that's hard data, some that's people. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on between that reality part and the data we select. Then on that data, we make a range of assumptions, and I'll talk about assumptions in a minute. We draw our own some conclusions, or we adopt the conclusions of others. That reinforces our beliefs generally, because we tend to have hindsight bias on these things. There's a whole load of data selection biases at play here, and we take actions based on that, okay? And they could be short-term, long-term. And that's the cycle. That's what we all do. That's how our brain, that's typically your left brain at work, sorting the data we know, okay? Now, there's a word there, Umwelt. It's a German word that says about sense making. It's how we interpret reality before we select the data. It's how we do a little bit of due diligence on reality before we go through that process, because that process is quite natural, string of things. Equally, are we taking new information, updating that data, and readjusting those conclusions and beliefs, and therefore changing some of our actions? As vets, we're not real good at that. Okay, we tend to be cut in a fairly common left brain loop of, here, tell me the answers, here's the answer, oh, I've done that, well, that didn't work, I'll do it again. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so there is a gap between that selection of data and the umfeld of sense making within that reality. So I'm going to come back to that piece, because that's the bit we need to fill in to make this work properly, to make our brains and our selection processes work properly. So this is sort of some basic neuroscience we need to be working on here. A couple of things are happening then. So we're responding to this, okay, and we can respond in a couple of dimensions. We can respond negatively, oh God, it's all so bad, it's going to be terrible, or we can react positively, and there's extremes of that. You know, the Eeyore, the world's going to end, let's give up now, to, no, it's just a case of flu, we'll be fine, we'll be over in 3 weeks, let's ignore that, or it won't affect me personally. And we can also respond passively, as in, well, nothing I can do, let's just see what happens, to actually, there's a lot we can do, and I should be out there making stuff happen for me, and taking a very proactive approach. And they're kind of the four dimensions. Number one is sort of negative and passive. So this is stoicism, this is, let's just take it on the chin, nothing I can do, you know, I'm just a vet, or I'm just in business, and the government's in charge and they'll sort everything out, I don't know, and we will just be the victim mentality within that. You know, perfectly, in some cases, helplessness is there, but learned helplessness is the danger of that as well. Okay, so there's a, have some space back. There's the more positive approach, but a passive one still, which says, no, there's a greater wisdom out there. The world will look after itself. As long as I'm a good person and I, you know, look after me and mine within my realm and sort of keep it to self. And I put out positive energy to the universe, and I attract positive energy from the universe. We're all going to be okay, which is kind of a new agey, Gaia, which is fine. It's a perfectly adequate place to me. It's a good positive thinking psychology that works with that. Okay, but it's pretty passive in its response on that, and there's nothing wrong with that either as well. Then there's the active negative response. So this is Extinction Rebellion. They're out there saying, yeah, you've screwed up the planet. We've got to take action. We're going to take action now. We're going to actually pull down governments, pull down institutions. We're going to pull down all the consumerism of the Western world and going to reinvent the world as a new and interesting place. And we've seen the response to that. Okay, and there's probably something. So you Greta Thunbergs and other sort of people are floating around this sort of area as well. Some good stuff in there, but also some maybe not so good stuff. Final piece is kind of what we call the Singularity University. This is an institution in America that's sort of put together, so organizations, leaders, entrepreneurs, big business is working together to figure out through technology, neurobiology, psychology, enterprise and commerce, how can we reinvent a better world? How can we take this forward? So your Bill Gateses and your other entrepreneurs, Warren Buffett's and your people are out there investing in this and take for your Elon Musk's, etc. Part of this, whatever you think, there's a variety of people. So Steve Kurzweil and people like that are part of this more proactive thing. And so we sort of have a similar view of this. We're going to say full control this and go out full bore and make things happen, or we're going to sort of be a little bit, oh no, let's see it happen. So just ask yourself, are you in one of those camps? Or in Monday you're in one, and Tuesday you're in another, and Thursday you're in another, etc. How are you responding to that? Because it's kind of the framework through which you're seeing this world and how that's going to pull together. Now, I'm not going to spend too much on that, but if you're interested, there's some interesting books out there sort of generated from each of those genres. That's, if you're interested, are worth a read. They give you some really dramatic insights of how this stuff works. So if you want that, that'll be in the slide deck we release after this. Okay. But what limits our responsiveness is, what's holding us back, and which I'm struggling with, is one, complexity. This is what I call, as I said, a wicked problem in that it doesn't have an answer. It doesn't have a linear process as you can go. It's a volatile, ambiguous, confusing, polarized situation. Equally, we're embedded in our own myths and traditions, within the veterinary profession for sure, in our own cultures for sure, in the Western world for sure, in business and commerce. Even that is a mythical, traditional, conservative model that doesn't actually work very well, okay? Otherwise, we wouldn't have all the problems we've got. And that's driving us to, okay, how do we go through adaptive survival here? So in survival mode, we are deep into fight-flight mechanisms. We are not at our best when we are under a feeling of threat. And adaptation doesn't come easily in that sort of things. And I will just chuck in here, there will be a big piece of grief to come from this. And I'm talking about human grief in terms of loss of stuff in our lives, etc. So not too heavy on that one, but we've got all these negative connotations to deal with. My question is, how do we lift ourselves out of that? Is this just the way it is? Fall back into this. Okay, the world's, it's too complex. I believe what I believe. That's my religion. That's my faith. That's whatever it is. I can't adapt, fixed mindset. And by the way, it's just too harsh. It's kind of the way we do that. Couple of philosophizing tools here. Some of you might have heard of Occams Razor. Abbott, he came up with this explanation in philosophy. If something has a couple of explanations, this is sort of addressing the conspiracy theories, where it's come from, why it's happened. Just use this one. In the case that requires the smallest number of assumptions, it's usually correct. So the most direct line to the answer is usually correct, not always. Other way of saying that the more assumptions you have to make, the more unlikely explanations. The Russians created a virus, they exported it to Wuhan, they infected a load of Chinese, they've now spread that around the world, blah, blah, blah. A lot of assumptions based in that one. Not sure I'm real. Look, there's a virus transmitted from a pangolin to a Chinese farmer. He's actually gone home, spread it to his family, and boom, it's gone around the world because it's highly virulent. Kind of kicks in with that one. But then with every bit of news you hear, maybe apply the razor to it. How many assumptions are sitting behind this stuff? You know, that's kind of what we do as scientists. We should practice what we preach. Second one is Pascal's wager. Pascal said, well, I'm going to believe in God just in case. If I'm right, hey, salvation forever. Okay. If I'm wrong, nothing lost. Okay. If I don't believe in God, and he does exist, I'll really cop that one up. Okay. If I don't believe in God and he doesn't exist, well, that's no harm. So it's kind of hedging your bets. So any of these suggestions that come forward, consider them as a wager. Okay. And we're going to talk about how we sort of put that wager on that. Just in case it goes pear-shaped, just in case it goes belly up, just in case the supply chain runs out, just in case the petrol, anything else. What are we doing? I'm not saying go panic buying or buying more toilet paper or anything. I'm just saying apply this. So the third one, this is a bit of Bayesian probability. Okay. Now, the Bayesian probability is that instead of looking the frequency of something that occurs, okay, it's the reasonable expectation of representing it or coming around as well. Okay. Probability is interpreted as a reasonable expectation, so there's a bit of sense to this. Now, this is a curve I just took off the internet. It's actually the probability of selling ice cream on a hot day. Okay. Now, there's two aspects to this, and then there's two assumptions at play. But isn't it very, very, very similar to the let the epidemic happen, the blue curve, or let's flatten the curve with physical isolation, the bottom curve. Okay, so actually this whole thing is working under a Bayesian principle, which means it has some sense to it, which means it has some predictability. Now that's the job of the epidemiologists. If you're that interested, look at good epidemiology. We put a few of those studies out on our email trail, and well worth a look at as well. So there is some sense to fall back on this. This isn't just a wild card phenomena happening. It can be taken forward. So think about those three things. Think your wages. Think of actually the assumption behind it and what we can work on. The other thing going on here is many of you have done your talent dynamics profiles. And I would say some of the responses, I'm going to get to this, some of the responses you're having to, in your practice, are going to be on your view of the world in terms of your profile. And this is perfect in any way, and there's a lot more to it, but it is one of the models we currently have and working with. So a couple of things happening. In the world we've been in very much, I didn't say, Dynamo is the innovative, big picture view of the world, future-paced, and this is where new ideas, new concepts, and inspiration comes from for moving forward, future-based. Blaze is about relationships, connections, working with people, supporting people, and connecting well with people. Tempo is about delivery and timing. It's about sustaining the process, keeping the status quo going and keeping things moving forward in a reasonable, continuous space. And steel is about the systems and processes, the measures and the figures behind it, and how we refine things to get better and better. We've been in a tempo steel energy in this profession for about 10 years. Okay, since the meltdown, we've gone into it. The symptoms of that are corporatization and actually growth and development of practices, and all been very well. What we're entering is a transition point from steel to dynamo. Okay, and one thing that's going to come out of this crisis is massive innovation, massive conflict. Equally, that's going to drag in a lot of blaze energy as well. And what we're already seeing in the news, people stepping up and creating communities, the Marco Polo groups, WhatsApp groups for people in your neighborhood, teams are saying we're all working from home now, working under we have the relationships at work, but we've had to extend that more. We're extending our relationships out to you people and more people, etc. But all these energies are going to be necessary. But what's going to help us here is where some of the resistance is come from is in the steel energy. Okay, give me the facts and figures. I don't believe this, or to be honest, that quote, give me the answers, comes from a steel approach to the world. There is an answer, I just want it. There isn't, okay? And the tempo is, okay, let's just hunker down, just keep doing what we're doing, we'll be okay in the end. So that's not a negative thing, but it's a natural approach to these things that we need to work at. So the way we approach this is going to be, if it's your strength and energy, if you haven't done this profile, get in touch with us and we can probably help you do it. We are shifting this, but this is still good news. We're going to innovate and create new futures and new ideas out of this intuitively, holistically, and we're going to work with the people and feel and live in the emotion of this and work with it. Now that can be so it can drag us down in the emotion or take us up, or we can actually co-regulate. Are we going to be the organised ones that keep everyone moving ahead and realistically, chronologically work with, or are we going to be the analytical types that work through this? Again, that's the people we need at the epidemiological end, maybe not at the strategic end, if you see what I mean. So just be aware of your focus and the glasses you're wearing, filters you're wearing. Okay. So we've got three things to consider here. You as the individual, you and your teams, and then your business as a business or practice in the community, etc. And that's what we need to work at. As an individual, working with a team, that's going to be a lot of interpersonal connection. So we look at the team support, team development. Individual working in the business is going to be your embodied experience of what happens in your life, because your business is probably your support mechanism for you and your family, your income, your identity, and all sorts of stuff. Then your team and your practice is going to be the practice culture that is either going to be strong, strengthened, or weakened on this. Now you could change that individual, family, and home if you want to put in those contexts as well. So we're working at two levels of this. And then that interacts with the outside world. That interacts with the old myths out there, but it's now interacting with the new barrage of information that may or may not be true. So the core of that is still, for you as leaders, is individuals. And I want to sort of cover how we are going to do that. So that's the culture we're in.
Alan, can you hear me? Okay, guys, I think most of you can still see me and can hear me, hopefully. Can you hear me? Thank you. We're trying to get Alan back on the call. Whilst we're doing that, I'm just going to see if I can answer any of the questions down that have been going on. I was saving them to the end because there was quite a lot of them rather than interrupt Alan in his flow. Some of you have been really sharing some of the things that you're doing. Just bear with me while I scroll back down again. Let me just, yeah, so there's quite a few of you saying that you've been really busy, that we discussed, didn't we? Some of you are, whether or not that's people, you know, before they actually get into lockdown, considering doing stuff. So we'll just have to see how that pans out. It may well be, as somebody on here, sorry, I can't remember who it was, wrote, it could be the storm before the lull. Quite a few of you are talking about methodologies that you are using to do consultations, mobile phones, etc. Obviously, there are apps. If you have had opportunity to, we've been demonstrating some online systems on our Facebook community. If you haven't seen those, it'd be well worth jumping onto the Vet Dynamics community and actually looking at those webinars as well. But a lot of people are using phones, WhatsApp, you know, things like Skype, etc., to limit access to the practice, which is obviously very good, a thing to be doing. I haven't had any news from anybody whether or not we can get Alan back on, but yeah, so it sounds as though a lot of you can hear me. Obviously, there's the concern about laying off your teams. Are you changing rotoring to 3 and 6, maybe 3 and 12? Actually pre-informing employees about what your policies are if you are just paying statutory sick pay. and people are, and I think it's important that you explain to your employees that you will do everything that you possibly can to support them, but also you will need to ensure that your business is sustainable. So I think just some clarity and communication with the team is really important. Lots of people are saying they're using different things. Alan is saying, Alan was saying, how are you getting on with Pets app? Someone's saying they've found it good so far. One of the things I think is quite challenging is using some of these, if there isn't an end-to-end app, is how you get paid. So be cautious. I was talking to a practice only a couple of days ago, that they're doing telephone consults, but getting payment when they pick up the meds. Just be careful, because they may not rock up to pick up the meds, and you could have not been paid for a consult. So make sure that you're actually charging for consults at that time on the telephone. So I think I'm going to bring this call to a close, this webinar to a close. Alan did say that if you found this useful, obviously Alan was laying out a lot of the philosophical issues behind this, but if you found this webinar useful, then we're intending on running this running something similar every week to support and assist you going forward. So I'd like to thank you all for your time, and for sharing lots of. Hopefully, you guys can see some of the messages that are coming in. So I think, Matt, keeping messages honest with the team, that you can pay them as long as you can pay them. And as I say, maybe it's about reducing hours. People would rather have reduced salaries than no salaries at all, or no job at all. So I think it's about just being open to actually, maintain communication. I've just had some guys from the office just let me know that we're trying to get Alan back on, but has lost Wi-Fi. So I know you guys are all very busy. We did say it was going to be an hour-long webinar. So we'll catch up with you again, and we'll send out some invites. So please do join us again. And do remember that we are here to support you. If you are within the community, please ensure that you're booking your calls with myself and the other coaches. It's important not to go into social lockdown, and even if it's just just having someone, a friendly voice to talk to. We realise that a lot of the business development stuff is going to be in a holding pattern for a while, and we're there to aid and assist you through this exceptional time. Also, there will be some information sent out to Platinum members. There will be information going out to Gold members. That to Platinums has gone out today, Gold members, where we are reaching out to you and actually providing as much help as we can. So when you get a chance, have a look at your emails. So thank you so much for your time, guys, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Hola a todos. Después de esta intensa charla, complicada de seguir porque el inglés de Alan para mí es excesivamente rápido, pero bueno, ahí lo hemos intentado. Os quiero dar las gracias por la asistencia. Ha sido una lástima esta parte final. Veo que también en Inglaterra hay problemas de Wi-Fi, no solamente aquí. Y ha sido un placer escucharle. Creo que es una persona importante con ideas claras y nos ha transmitido esa idea de fortalecer el equipo, de trabajar con los equipos y de estar abiertos a unos cambios que están por venir, que él cree inevitables, y a ser un poco los futuros Elon Musk, o las futuras personas que realmente están pensando en algo diferente a partir de ahora, y que seguramente todo lo que hemos visto y todo lo que hemos hecho pues no va a ser suficiente para seguir adelante. Pero bueno, aquí hay gente muy inteligente, lo demostráis estando con nosotros, y esperamos que os haya servido, que os haya ayudado. El vídeo será colgado para volverlo a ver si queréis. No sé si habéis podido disponer de la transcripción para ayudaros en el seguimiento de la charla. También hay una herramienta habilitada que me ha pasado Inma, en donde hay una traducción al castellano muy mala, pero una traducción. Y poco más. Os emplazamos para el próximo día 20, que vamos a hablar otra vez del método Lean. Esta vez serán unas españolas, Lali Foncuberta y su hermana, que nos hablarán desde un punto de vista del Health Lean, y creo que va a ser muy interesante también. Y para finales de mes, para el 27, tendremos con nosotros a Iván López, no me acuerdo, Iván López, que nos hablará del método Calgary, de cómo enfrentar las consultas bajo una metodología que creemos altamente interesante. Así que, de nuevo, muchas gracias. Os esperamos de nuevo y, como siempre, sois bienvenidos y una buena despedida. Un abrazo a todos. Gracias.